May 13th of this year marked the 30th anniversary of the only aerial police bombing on U.S. soil, an event, sadly, most Americans have never heard of. Philadelphia police dropped a bomb on top of a house inhabited by members of an African American political organization named MOVE in a predominantly black neighborhood. 11 people were killed, among them 5 children. Only 2 people survived: a 13-year-old boy named Michael Ward, who died 2 years ago after years of therapy for the trauma he suffered, and a woman named Ramona Africa, who joins me in studio today. She is in Los Angeles, where this program is produced, to speak at an event that is screening a documentary about the 1985 MOVE house bombing called Let the Fire Burn. Ramona Africa is also the Minister of Communication for the MOVE organization, and I'm so honored to welcome her to our show. Welcome to Uprising.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you're a figure whose name I have seen, who I have read about, who I have talked about on my
Don't fall
program
for the hype.
for many years. And so for me, this is amazing to be sitting with you in a studio to talk about such a historic event that, as I said, most Americans still have never heard of. Why is it that so many Americans outside of progressive movements and outside of African American communities have not heard about what happened in 1985?
Well, it's very simple, actually. People have not heard about the bombing because government officials cannot justify it any kind of way. I mean, they burned babies alive. They cannot justify that. So officials do what they generally do. They manipulate a willing media to just keep it quiet. Don't talk about it, don't do anything about it. And that's why a lot of people have not heard about it.
This May, because it was the 30th anniversary, so it was a prominent date, there was some media coverage. NPR did a lengthy piece on it, and you joined others to commemorate it in Philadelphia. Do you think that 30 years later there is a little bit more coverage, a little bit more awareness?
I absolutely do. And that is buttressed by the fact that people from all over the country and outside of the country, people came from France to be part of our program. It was amazing even to me, even though I was expecting a lot of people, but absolutely 30 years later, more people, know about what happened to MOVE, know about MOVE, and are motivated enough to come out to support MOVE.
You didn't say this, but I think it is important to just come out and say the fact that the bombing was aimed at an African American neighborhood against an African American organization has a lot to do with why it's not better known. Many more Americans know about the Waco issue and incident. But part of it also is, I think, the fact that this is part of our ongoing blindness on the issue of racism.
Well, absolutely. Let me first say, however, that MOVE is what's called multiracial. There are white people in MOVE, Spanish people in MOVE, there have been Jewish people in MOVE.
But the
We
leadership
are
is
multiracial.
predominantly
Yeah,
historically.
MOVE is predominantly black, African American. Uh, so to respond to your question, absolutely, this never would have happened in a predominantly white neighborhood with a predominantly white organization. Never would have happened.
Tell us about John Africa, the founder of MOVE. His name has sort of reached mythic proportions, right, these days. Who was he, and what was his motivation?
Okay. His name has reached those proportions, I believe, most likely because John Africa represents what's right, what is godly. And you don't find that, out there. People are searching for that. But the bottom line is John Africa is a being that brought truth, that brought honesty, a respect for life. The belief that John Africa have given MOVE members is that life is the priority. Without categorization, we're talking about human life, animal life, plant life, the water we must have, the air we must have, the earth we must have to grow food to feed us, the sun that warms the earth. Life is the priority, and nothing comes before life. And anything that opposes life is to be brought down, shut down for good, because life is the priority.
So that was the basis of
That's the
the sort of
basis.
beliefs and system that MOVE has been founded on.
And it's what put us in direct
Right.
conflict with this system, you know, that doesn't care about life at all, who barters the air for air pollution, you know, poisons the water that we must have, puts, toxic waste in the earth that feeds us.
So your personal experience and the experience of
Mm.
many MOVE members exemplifies an issue that has finally, after a very long time in the US, perhaps not since the 90s, become a center stage, and that is the issue of police brutality. What happened to MOVE was the worst expression of police brutality, the most violent example of police brutality in the history of the United States.
Absolutely.
How do you view what is happening today with the Black Lives Matter movement, given the long history that you have with being the target of police brutality?
Well, I will tell you, the way you describe the bombing of me and my family is accurate. And one of the reasons that things are so out of control today, with cops just killing people at random on the street, is because, and I say one of the reasons, is because the response that should have come from the people after the bombing wasn't what it should have been.
That should have been the last time that cops got away with doing what they did.
Well, at least they should have been a lot more leery
And
and
nobody was
reserved.
ever held accountable for that bombing, right?
Absolutely.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
how do you allow that to happen? It doesn't matter if you care about MOVE, if you
Yeah.
like MOVE. I've said it over and over again. We know people have issues with MOVE. Some people have issues with MOVE. But get over it. Let's deal with the overwhelming issue here. They dropped a bomb on a row house. That bomb ignited a fire. The firefighters who were there from the beginning, who were the first mode of attack on MOVE with their water hoses, their deluge hoses, when there was a fire, they didn't put any water on it, made no attempt to put it out. Now, when have you ever heard of firefighters being at a fire scene, knowing there are men, women, babies, animals in that dwelling, and they stand by and make a decision not to not to put the fire out? I don't know who exactly suggested that, gave the order, or whatever, but a crime scene, a scene dealing with police is one thing, but once there is a fire, that is the jurisdiction of the fire commissioner, and so the onus of it
Yeah.
all has to fall on him.
And that's why the documentary about what happened in 1985 is entitled Let the Fire Burn. And
Absolutely.
in fact, this is an amazing documentary produced a couple of years ago by Zeitgeist Films. I want to play a trailer for our audience of this documentary.
Okay.
It's called,
I just
yeah,
have to make a point. When we realized our home was on fire, we immediately attempted to get our children, our animals, and ourselves out of that blazing inferno. The instant the cops could see us trying to come out and we were hollering that we're coming out, we're bringing the children out, the children were hollering, we're coming out, they're bringing us out. The instant the cops could see us, we were met with a barrage of police gunfire.
Yeah.
They didn't intend for anybody to survive that confrontation.
Yeah. Let the Fire Burn is the name of the documentary that encompasses and captures what happened 30 years ago, May 13th, 1985. Let's watch the trailer.
May 13th, 1985, years of conflict between the city of Philadelphia and a small urban group known as MOVE ended in a violent day-long encounter. It was one of the most devastating days in the modern history of the city.
The big story tonight is the effort to evict MOVE. The effort has turned into a disaster. Can you describe the philosophy of MOVE?
We were being taught about the corruption in this system. The system, the establishment, you.
Did you consider the MOVE organization to be a terrorist group?
People who threaten to shoot and kill neighbors, police. I think that's a pretty adequate description of the word terrorist.
Where is it written that we could not have a religion of our own?
The system had one intention, to either kill MOVE people or to put us in prison as long as possible. It's just that simple.
More than 36 Philadelphia policemen surrounded the building after a MOVE member was spotted on the roof wearing a hooded mask and carrying a shotgun.
We intend to seize control of the house. We will do it by any means necessary.
Every one of us knew that someone was going to die.
Did you have a concern that the people inside that house might be in physical danger?
Excuse me, to
Yes, ma'am.
ask me what were we concerned is complete insanity.
There has just been a huge explosion here. We don't know what it means, but it just shook the whole place. It was a huge blast.
Did it ever occur to you that this might have been a dangerous device?
Yes, ma'am.
The fire got real heavy, so we couldn't breathe. Then that's when we started yelling.
What did you say? What did you yell?
We want to come out.
There's no one that I know in city government that would intentionally go out there to burn those people to death. There's no one that I know of could do that.
I remember as soon as I scooped him up, he said to me, "Don't shoot me, don't shoot me."
And that's a trailer for the documentary Let the Fire Burn about the 1985 firebombing of the MOVE House in Philadelphia. And joining me in studio today is Ramona Africa, the sole surviving adult member of that firebombing. And she's also the Minister of Communication of the MOVE organization. This film is very important in showing the world what happened 30 years ago, because although there was local coverage in Philadelphia, there wasn't a sort of a single document that encompassed a lot of what happened in one place. How important has this film been as a tool to raise awareness?
It's been pretty good. I have to admit that the filmmaker Jason Oster, he came to Philadelphia and did 2 extensive interviews with me. According to him, he interviewed other people as well. And in the end, he decided not to use any of the interviews. There's a short clip of information from me, but it wasn't from the interviews that he did. And he made the decision to use archival footage from the commission hearings, etc., rather than any current interviews. I would have preferred him to use current information and interviews, but, you know, it's his movie, his film.
Right.
I think it has gone a long way toward waking people up, because I get emails almost any time the film is screened anywhere in the country. I end up getting emails and finding out that it's screened here, screened there, etc. It is also international. I know it was screened in Germany. While the international community seems much more aware than the U.S. community, I've been invited literally all over the world, all over Western Europe, Amsterdam, France, Germany, Italy, Belgium, Spain. I've been to South America. My sister went to Cuba. One of our supporters went to Africa, to Durban, for the Congress Convention on Racism, etc. We've been all over. The international community seems to be much more on target than the U.S. community.
And Ramona, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, you talked about how when people tried to leave the burning building, they were met with gunfire. You and one other person survived, a 13-year-old boy who sadly died 2 years ago. You were remarkably then charged yourself with inciting riot and other related charges. So the trauma that you went through and simply dealing with the harrowing nature of what was done to you
and my family
and your family, and then on top of that, you were criminalized. This is part of the system of police brutality, which works hand in hand with the criminal justice system, to say that, when people are beaten up or harmed in any way, they're then turned around and charged with resisting arrest or assault or whatever, in this case, inciting riot. Tell us a little bit about the aftermath of the bombing.
One thing that people are probably not aware of is that Police Commissioner Gregory Sambor came out to our home with 4 warrants for 4 of us, me and 3 of my sisters and brothers. The warrants allege disorderly conduct. I think they threw in terroristic threats, which was ridiculous, for an event that had happened 2 weeks earlier, which was a non-event. Anyway, after my arrest and when I began the court process, the warrants that they came out there with, the charges in the warrants that they came out there with, were dismissed. They were found to have no basis to them. They were dismissed. Now, it seems to me that if your reason for being out there was dismissed, found to be invalid and had no basis to it, how can anything coming from you being out there and attacking us be valid? They charged me, before the original warrants were thrown out, they charged me with everything that they did. They charged me with possession of explosives. I didn't have a bomb or any explosives. They did. They charged me with arson. I didn't start a fire. Their bomb started a fire. They charged me with risking and causing a catastrophe. Me and my family were in our home minding our business when they came out there. Everything that they did, they charged me with. In the end, despite the laundry list of charges, I was convicted and sentenced for riot. Now, I rioted at my own home, in my own house, I was sentenced to 16 months to 7 years. And when my 16-month sentence was up, I was interviewed by the parole board. Parole board told me that they were willing to parole me with one special condition, that I sever all ties with my MOVE family. I could not have any contact with any MOVE person. Now,
which goes to show that this was the idea of MOVE that they were
that
opposed
was the
to.
issue. They didn't ask me to agree not to riot, not to participate in any demonstrations.
We're supposed
to
have freedom of religion in the U.S.
Yes,
that the right wing especially
to.
Constantly holds up. Wow. So what happened? What did you do?
I told them they could take that special condition and stick it. I was not agreeing to that. When they tried that with several of my other MOVE sisters and brothers, nobody accepted that stipulation. So I ended up doing the whole 7 years. My sister Sue Africa, one of our white members, did 12 years. You know, my sister Alberta Africa did her full 7. My brother Mo Africa did his full 5
Meanwhile,
years.
nobody was ever charged or convicted
Not
or
one
sentenced
single
for the
person.
firebombing of the Move House.
Not one. But, I mean, you see it today.
Yeah.
I mean, Darren Wilson wasn't prosecuted for killing Michael Brown. You know, it's the order
There have been a
of the
few
day.
charges over the past year in Baltimore and most recently in Cincinnati, but still no actual convictions. We'll see how those
Exactly.
trials play out. One of the people that I want to talk about with you, Ramona, that you have done a lot of support for, who is a very prominent figure on our program, is Mumia AbuJamal. We routinely play his commentaries. He's been a longtime ally of Move, and like you and other Move members, he was also a victim of police brutality and was also incarcerated and criminalized. He's currently struggling for his life in prison, and we've been covering his medical struggles. It appears that he has now been diagnosed with hepatitis C, but he's not being treated for it.
Let me clarify something. According to the medical documents that his attorneys have gotten, prison officials have known that Mumia had active hepatitis C since 2012. You're talking about 3 years.
And it hasn't been treated.
Has not been treated.
And this is a huge problem, a rampant problem in our prison system where prisoners are getting infected with hepatitis C.
Absolutely, but I need to make something clear here. Daniel Faulkner, the cop that Mumia is accused of killing, his widow, Maureen Faulkner, when Mumia's death sentence was overturned and he was given an outrageous life in prison without parole, Maureen Faulkner was livid. And she said, well, now that he's not so isolated and it's easier to get to, maybe he'll get what he deserves now.
Wow.
Now, we can't get any clearer than that. Everybody knows what she's talking about. When Mumia was on death row for 30 years, he didn't get sick like that. He had a problem with his feet swelling up sometimes every now and then. But none of this. How is it that when he gets into general population, he has all these problems?
And a lot of his supporters have felt that essentially because they couldn't execute him, they're trying other means of medical negligence or something even more nefarious. And there's no way right now for us to find out about that.
Well, it's pretty clear. I mean, if they were interested at all, as they should be, in Mumia's welfare, his health and medical welfare, I mean, all they had to do was say yes to the community's demand to have outside doctors come in and examine Mumia and treat him. We're willing to pay for that. We're willing to foot the bill. Minister Louis Farrakhan said he would fly in the doctors of Mumia's choice and, you know, kick in a portion of the medical expenses.
And there were crowdfunding campaigns where people donated money.
Right, right. You know, so what is their problem? They're not being asked to pay for anything. They want to kill him. They're intent on killing him.
Well, we've done what we can to keep his voice on the air by airing his commentaries, which can be found at prisonradio.org. Finally, we've touched upon a little bit of this, but in the past year, the Black Lives Matter movement has finally managed to raise in a public way and in a mainstream way consciousness among the general public about police brutality against African Americans and unarmed people in particular, something that has, of course, been a problem right from the beginning, but is only now kind of breaking into the public consciousness in the same way that the Rodney King beating did in 1992. How hopeful are you today? You're a veteran of these struggles against police brutality. Are you hopeful that there is some change happening on the awareness front? We're coming upon, and actually it's August. This is a very important month. A lot of folks refer to August as Black August. Any last thoughts on those issues?
Absolutely. I was just in Cleveland for the Black Lives Movement
The gathering,
conference. Yes. And I have to say, I was pretty impressed with several things. One, there was a ton of young people there. And these are young people that are ready and willing to do something. They don't want to hear a lot of words. They want information. They listen to elders, you know, as you say, veterans of the struggle. They listen to what, you know, was said. They ask questions, and they're ready to step up and to really crystallize that. The people I was traveling with, we left Cleveland around 12 o'clock on that Sunday, the last day of the conference. En route home, we found out that the cops had stopped this young man, 14 years old, said he was intoxicated, and, you know, the people, it was some people outside of the student center where the conference was, and they stepped right up. They surrounded the police car, wouldn't let them take this boy away till his mother got there, and they put so much pressure, showed such a, you know, show of strength that they released that boy to his mother, to his parents. They didn't take him into custody.
Well, Ramona,
it's the power of the people.
Exactly. There you go. That's a great note to end on. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us. It's been an honor to have you here to talk about history and contemporary politics.
Thank you for having me. On the Move. Long live all of our freedom fighters. Long live revolution. Long live Earth First, the Earth Liberation Front, the Animal Liberation Front. Long live all of those who fight for what is right.
Thank you so
Long
much.
live John Africa.
Ramona Africa is the sole living survivor of the bombing of the Move House in Philadelphia in 1985. She is also the Minister of Communications for Move.